So guys, I think we'll get started. So if you've managed to log on and you've managed to get onto the account, don't worry if you can't get on, because what I'll try and do later is record this session so that you can kind of watch it back depending on the day of your exam. Now, there's a number of things that I'm going to try and go over with you today, just some recaps, particularly for the level 2 students when you do your if statements and what they might be asking. The reason why I'm in PowerPoint to begin with is I want to give a couple of you a few tips and things that you should be aware of when you're using PowerPoint. Now, sometimes what you can do is you can get a picture, so let's just go onto a slide, and in the exam it might want you to insert a logo. So if I go on to insert a logo, so I'll just tilt that there. If I go to insert and insert the picture that they've asked me to, let's just go for some pictures. Okay, so there's a picture from some primary schools. Now, if that picture needed to go onto every slide, a lot of people might be tempted to just copy and paste that slide over and over again. That's one way that you can do that. So I'm just going to hold up the iPad and show you. So you could just copy and paste that slide over and over again. But there's an easier way to do it than that. Sometimes you might have to put the logo on every slide, but copying and pasting the slide won't do it if you've already made your title slide. So what you can do is you can go to View menu. So if you go to View and go to your slide master, it puts it in the view so that you're able to just copy and paste. So I can insert that picture again, and if I put that somewhere on my top slide, let's make that smaller, and if I go to View and go back to normal view, right, it should be on every slide still. So I'll go back to that, View, Slide Master. In fact, I put that on the wrong slide, so let's put that on the, it should be on the very top slide. So it should be on the very top slide. So if I paste that picture there, that puts it on every slide now. So if I close that master slide, you can now see that that picture is on the same place on every slide. Even if I delete it off the original off there, if I go here and remove that, that picture's there from the slide master. So slide master is one way to get a picture on every slide. Particularly the level 1 students need to be aware of how to put a picture on every slide. Now, when you're doing your PowerPoint, you need to be careful, because what some people have a tendency to do is waste a lot of space. So if I just show you an example here, so let me just put the iPad there. Alright, so I'm going to make a slide just called revision. Here it's my first point, here it's my second point, it's my third point. I'm going to insert some clip art. Let's just use this picture again. Alright, now a lot of people don't think about the space that they've got. Alright, now if you had a slide that looked like that in your exam, you'd lose marks for that. And that's because you've got all this white space at the bottom here and all of this white space over here. What you really want to think about doing when you're doing any PowerPoints is, if you hold shift after a bullet point and press enter, you can actually space out your bullet points. Now, whatever you do in the exam, don't just copy and paste the text. Because imagine if you've copied and pasted the text and you haven't read it properly and you've got spelling errors in there. You're going to lose marks for that, so you need to be careful. Also, you need to remember what I said before about slides and subheadings. So your title slide will need to be different to the rest. So you notice I've got size 60. I might make that bold and I might make that underlined. Now on my main slides, then I might just have that bold, and then your text underneath it, and all of your presentations. If you can, maybe you have to put two pictures on one slide. Try and position them. So I'll just show you an example here. Try and position them so that you're still making good use of the space. You have to imagine that these are your exam pictures here. Alright, copy and paste. And like I said, I have no idea how many. Don't worry if that happens, Nathan, if it keeps saying you have to reconnect, because what I'll do at the end of this is I'll save the recording and upload it to YouTube. So don't worry if that happens. So what we have here is our pictures all organised, and you're more likely to get more marks for that. And also make sure you check the text and that you correct your spellings. Now, one other thing that I want to go over quickly when it comes to your PowerPoints, make sure that your pictures are relevant, right? Because sometimes you might be doing a PowerPoint all about, let's say, the deserts and the Middle East. But what they tend to do in the exam is they'll give you a bunch of random pictures. 4 of them will be relevant and 1 of them will be completely off the scale or have nothing to do with the presentation. So on my revision presentation, I'm not going to really use these pictures. They're not relevant. What I might put pictures of is PowerPoints, Excel. So in your exam, say for example you have a presentation that's talking about the desert, don't put in a picture such as ice skating. Don't assume that all the pictures that you need are relevant to what you're doing. So you need to be careful there. Alright, now what I'll do is I'm just going to flip the camera around, and I'm just going to talk to you about, so let's just swipe this down. Okay, so when you're doing the last section of the paper, you need to be careful, because the last section of the paper is all the questions about your general use of ICT. So what we've went over in the past in lessons is a lot to do with things such as virus scanners. So if any of you are able to type and answer this question, then do so. If you can't, you can always tweet, and I'll get the tweet through and I'll be able to say whether that's a correct answer or not. But say for example somebody has sent you a file with an attachment, but they've not named the file and they haven't put the name in the subject. What are you likely to do with that email? What should you do to it? I'll just wait a second to see if anybody sends a tweet or if they write on the screen. So if somebody sends you, yeah, alright, but when you're, so well done Nathan, you do need to scan the file. So you could either delete it or you can scan the file to make sure that it hasn't got any viruses in it. Okay, so there's a number of things. So there's I wouldn't say check HTTPS. You might do that if you are on a particular website. So if say for example somebody told you to go to a particular website and buy something and do something for shopping, well, if it's had HTTPS in front of it, that means it's secure. So if you get an exam question that talks about Mr. Chambers wants you to go online and wants you to purchase something from Amazon, how can you make sure it's safe? You could say make sure HTTPS is in front of the address, because more often or not that means that it's secure. So we've gone over viruses. Make sure you scan any files that you are sent with a virus scanner. Alternatively, if you don't have a virus scanner, you would probably just delete the file right away to make sure that your computer doesn't get infected. So another question that may come up is, what is spyware? Anyone want to try with that one? So what is spyware? So let's see if anyone does that. I'll give you a minute. Well, generally spyware is a piece of, well, like, it's similar to a virus. It's like a piece of software that is installed onto your computer. So somebody will send you it maliciously through email, and what they'll try and do is they'll try and make sure you download it, install it, and what it does is it runs in the background and it will detect your key presses, what sort of websites you go on, and in some cases what that can do is that can be sent to people and they can use that information online. So somebody could get your bank card details. Now, what you can do is you can get anti-spyware software. Now, here's a really key point. Don't just say remove spyware. So if you get a question that says, what is an anti-spyware piece of software? Okay, don't just say it removes the spyware. You need to make sure you get both points in there and say anti-spyware software will search for the spyware and then remove it. The same goes for virus scanners. You need to make sure that you get that key point in there of saying it will search for the file and then remove it. Alright? Now, another possible question that could come up, believe it or not, is if you're, say for example, the printer starts having flashing lights and your work isn't coming out of the printer, how would you deal with that? And I'd like to see if anyone has an answer for that. So if your printer was showing a flashing light and there was an error and your work wasn't coming out of the printer, can you tell me 2 ways of dealing with that? Even if it's just a guess. So you can write on here or through Twitter. Well done. You'd probably get a mark for that, Nathan. So that's one of the marks. So check that the paper hasn't run out. Okay? It might seem like a simple question and a simple answer, but something simple like that will get you a mark. So check that it hasn't run out of paper. So yeah, check that there isn't a paper jam. And also check the ink. So well done, Nathan, you're doing a good job. Check that the ink hasn't run out. All of these things. What they wouldn't... Yes, well done, Matt. Yeah, make sure that you have checked all of the inks, because on the printer sometimes it comes up with these examples, alright? So these are the type of things that they'll be looking for. What they won't be looking for is check printer credits, because not every school, not every business, not every company has something that will say check the printer credits. Alright, so what you've said right away, what you said right away, that's exactly what they would be looking for. I'll go over one more possible type of question that they could ask. If somebody visually impaired is using the computer and they're having trouble reading on the computer, can you suggest 2 changes that they could make to make it easier for them to read? So can you suggest 2 changes that would make it easier for those people to read the computer? Just want to double check that. Well done. So what you can do is, yep, well done Jenna, font size, Nathan, enlarge the text. So they're pretty much the same thing. So you can go into zoom, that's a good answer, Matt. So in the bottom right corner of the screen, right, I'll go over about changing the background in a minute, Nathan. So in the bottom right corner of your screen, it is possible to use the magnifier. So if you go into, usually it's found in the start menu and accessories, what you can do is search for the magnifying glass, and you can use that to enlarge specific areas of the screen. something that will get you marks usually is the contrast. Many of you, maybe when you're in year 6 or when you're in year 7, might have found it funny to change each other's screens. You know where you make it go black and white and make it look all negative? That's called the screen contrast. And believe it or not, some people out there who have problems with their vision, what they can do is they can make the screen black and white. So if you imagine the white on the screen is black and the black text is then white, that makes it easier for certain people to read, and that's called the screen contrast. So that's something that you can look out for. So what I'm going to do now is I've went over a few tips for you on PowerPoint. Like I said, don't include pictures that aren't relevant to the text. So if you're doing a slide on a safari trip, you're not going to include a picture of ice skaters. So you got to be careful with the pictures that they give you. I've went over some of the possible questions that they might come up with at the end. Many of you struggled on making files read-only, so I'm just going to show you how to do that. So it comes up again. So if you go to File and Save As, okay, just waiting for my computer. Alright, I'm going to choose where I want to save my file. Your computer's a slightly different version to this, but let's just go on to the desktop. What you can do is you can go to your save options, and in here you can usually tick the box that says read only. Okay. Alternatively, sorry about this, if you look here, when you're in your information on Office, it is possible to do read only. Alright? So whenever you need to find read only, you always get it from these menus, so in the options menus, and that will help you. Now, what I'm just going to go over with you is a couple of things that you need to be careful of in Excel. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rest that there and get you your files. So I'll open it. So guys, you will remember this file from the lesson, okay? So this was the EastEnders file that we worked on in the lessons. Now, this spreadsheet is already formatted, alright? And it's already set up. Now what you might find, what you should find in fact, when you get your spreadsheet open, so let's take all of this formatting off. So I'm just going to take all the formatting off, and no borders, no fill, all text black. So what you will get in your exam is you'll get a file that looks similar to this. You won't have any formatting on, right? The very first thing that you need to make sure that you do in your exam is make sure that you make these columns big. I know I say it all the time, but it's easy to forget when you're in the exam. Make sure you double click on each of these, alright? And if that doesn't look right, you just make sure that make sure you enlarge them, and if you can't remember how to do that, it's just you click between the join and you drag it along. So you keep clicking it, drag it along until they are all in the screen. And if you remember, you can double click. Alright, now make sure, so there's one mark, making sure everything fits on the screen. Another mark, highlight the cells and maybe make them bold. Okay, maybe change them into a lighter color. Okay, so all the options are up here. You can make it bold, you can add borders, color it in. At the end of the day, you've got to try and convince the examiner that you deserve 3 marks for making that spreadsheet easy for them to read. Okay, so that's at the top. You've got bold, italic, underline for your headings. Choose a color of the cell, make sure you fill. Alright, then some of the things that you will need to do, and this is in both papers, they usually do the sorting. I'm going over this again. You highlight the whole section, not just a line, not a column, because a lot of people have been doing that in the past couple of weeks. You highlight the whole section, and to do your sorting, if you go up to the top right, you should see sort and filter, and what you're going to do is you're going to do a custom sort, and my data has headers. Tick that box, because if you tick that box, when you go to sort by, your headings will be there. So if I needed to sort it by the first name, alright, or the surname within the first name, I'd add another level so that I can do both of them at the same time. Then when you click on OK, it's all there, and it's all in the correct order. Alright, so if I do that again, sort, custom sort, I'm going to sort by the surname, and then this time sort within the first name. Click OK, and you can see that everybody is sorted this time by their first name within the surname. So there's 2 ways to do it. You've just got to make sure you read that question carefully. Now the next thing that I'm going to go over with you, if you have money, so you notice at the moment that there isn't a single column that has money, but it might be that when you open up the spreadsheet it says how much are they worth. Okay, again I need to double click that to make it wider. Maybe it's got values all the way down. What you need to remember is that in the exam they're not going to say words like currency. They will say things like how much is it worth, what is the total cost. Anything to do with cost or totals, generally when it comes to income they're talking about money. So what you need to make sure that you do is highlight those cells. This is if there is money, and then click on the currency button. Alright, now if you accidentally put that on and it's not needed, you can go up to that menu at the top and change it back to general, and that gets rid of what you did earlier. Alright, so we'll go to currency, and that's fixed that for you. Alright, now let's just write that up. One more thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to go over an if statement with some of you and go over some filters with you, some number filters, because number filters come up in the exam quite often. So, say for example I'm using this column and I want to see only the people that have got a score of 7 or higher. Well, what I need to do is highlight the top row. Okay, then what I need to do is make sure I go up here to sort and filter and turn the filter on, or you can use the keyboard shortcut. Now that the filter is on, so I want to see the Cockney rating and see if they're 7 or above. Now if they give you a number or above, that basically means it's equal to that number. So I need to say number filters 7, alright, is greater than or equal to 7. Alright, now if I click on OK, you can see that that's showing 7 or above. Now, just a quick reminder, when you are doing your filters, don't turn them back off before you create a chart. This is for level 1 and level 2, because this week in some of our IT lessons, some of you were told to make a chart to show the total, but then you went to your filters and reset them. Don't do that, because it wants to see the people who you have restricted, okay? It wants to see your filters. Now, one last thing we need to go over on spreadsheets quickly is how to make a chart. Now, if I asked you to make a chart on Cockney rating, you wouldn't just highlight that and go to Insert Chart. Because what it does, so if I go to Insert and Chart, is it gives you a chart without any of your headings. Alright, so you need to make sure you highlight, so you highlight the first column, whatever column you need to show, whatever column has the name. Then I'm just going to put this down. Alright, then you hold down the control key, CTRL, then you highlight that data, and you can see you've got 2 columns. Insert, chart, and this time you'll notice the chart at the bottom has all of the names. Now, what you need to remember to do is go up to the top and choose your data types. So in your version of Excel you have data and you have different views, and make sure that you turn on your axes at the bottom. Okay, you need your axes at the bottom and your axes at the side. That's what my chart's missing, and if you do that in your exam, okay, you're going to have some issues. So I'm going to turn on my axes, give them names. So I will say characters in EastEnders, and then I'll say Cockney rating. And at the top, you need to make sure your title includes the keywords from the exam paper. Even if it's a long name, alright, don't worry about it. So, a chart to show the total of each character's, helps if I spell it, alright, each character's Cockney rating. Okay, so you can make sure that each of these have the following. So that chart there would get you 5 out of 5, right? Unless you have made a pie chart. Okay, pie charts are a totally different story. Usually with pie charts we only make them when you have to do a percentage, so look out for that in the exam paper. If it says to do a chart that shows a total percentage, then you would use a pie chart, and again it's a similar story. Highlight the first without holding control, then you hold down control for the second, highlight that and go to Insert, select your pie chart. Now what you need to make sure you do here again is change your rating. So this pie chart to show the percentage of Cockney rating amongst the characters, and then what you can do is either add or remove your legend. Okay, you can add your data labels. You can also put them on the outside. Do you have to decide? No, Nathan, usually what they do in the exam, okay, if you think about our past papers that we've done before, in the exam they'll tell you to insert a chart, but you have to make the decision on the type of chart that you make. Now, if it says in the exam question, produce a chart to show the percentage of, and whatever it is, then you make a pie chart. If it doesn't say, produce a chart to make a percentage, more often or not, you will do a standard bar chart, and that should be sufficient for that. I hope that's helpful. Now, just to finish off there on spreadsheets, I'm going to do an if statement. So, are they popular? Alright. So I'm just going to put an if statement in to say if they are popular or not. Let's see if I can move that back a bit. Right. So, remember our technique. I'm going to say if they have a popularity rating of 6 or above, so the question might say, say to people, say that they are popular if they have a popularity rating of 6 or above. When you sort and filter, does it matter which? When you sort, sorry, I'll come back to that, Jenna. When you sort and filter, how do you mean? When you do, let me just do that. So do you mean when it comes up with that, Jenna? If it says sorting within something, right, usually what it means is, say for example, I had to sort the surname within the first name. What you would do is sort the first name first, then, so what I'm sorting here is I'm sorting the first name within the surname. Does that make sense? So this is sorting the first name within the surname. So whichever one it says within goes at the top. I hope that makes sense. Alright. Now, going back to this if statement, if I am, for example, remember we press our FX button. Let me just move that over. We press the FX button and it brings up this formula box, and to bring up my if statement I can either search for it in the top box by searching if and clicking on go, or more often or not it's just down the bottom and I can double click it. Now you have to be careful, because what a lot of people do in the exam is what they tend to do is wonder why their formula is not working, because they keep trying to test the cell that they're in, so they might click in that cell. But think about it logically, that doesn't make sense. Why am I going to test the cell that I'm typing in? I want to test the popularity which is in J4. So if J4 is greater than or equal to 6, alright, what value do you want to appear? So it might be a message saying you are popular, or it might say you are not popular. So that's the two possible outcomes. Don't worry if this is quite quick, because you will be able to play this back. Now if I click on OK, alright, I can copy that down now by dragging that. So you can see all the people who are popular and all the people who aren't very popular. Now what I will say is sometimes it won't actually ask you to type some text in. So be careful. Sometimes, depending on the outcome of your if statement, it might be if they are popular. Oh, don't worry about the YouTube channel, Nathan. What I will do is I will put a link once I've saved it, and I will put it and I'll tweet it out so that you can access it. sometimes when you're doing this if statement, what it might say is value if true, okay? It might be that you have to do a sum in here. So it might be that, oh, if they are popular, I want you to add plus 10 to their popularity. If they're not, I want you to subtract 10 from their popularity. But that's just an example. So I'm saying, based on whatever your if statement is, you can actually do sums in here, like add or divide or subtract. I've done this in lessons before, but I just wanted to remind you that it is possible, because we have no idea what's going to come up on the exam, so I just want to cover all bases there, and I hope that's helpful. So we'll go down and you can see that that's actually added. I'm going to take the currency off there. Alright, so I've tried to cover as much as I can on spreadsheets without trying to take up too much of your time. Just to finish off, I just want you to be careful, alright? So, more often or not, you can make a newsletter. Now, you can make your newsletter in Word, okay, or you can make it in Publisher. It is up to you. So you might have to do a newsletter or a flyer, but what I will say, VLOOKUPs, it's unlikely, but what I will do is I'll just cover that with you quickly. Alright, so say for example, let's say Chirpy 1, 2, 3. I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sad. Okay. Getting better. Happy. Really happy. Excited. Over the moon. Jolly. Really, really happy. So I've got here, let's make that bigger, where I'm going to get my chirpiness rating from. So let's do the VLOOKUP over here. So answer. So what I would do is I'd press FX and search for VLOOKUP. Alright. Remember, the lookup value, alright, is the value you are looking for. So I am looking for the chirpiness this time, so I'm going to click into that cell. Okay, it's alright. Then the table array is which table you are looking for it in, so I'm going to highlight this whole table. In fact, I've made a bit of a boo-boo there. I want the bottom half of the table. Alright. The column number, so you can replay this video later, is what value you want to appear. So I want the second column, and the range lookup I'm going to say true. So now if I click on OK, can anyone spot what I've done wrong? Because if I want to repeat this down, I should have done something to my formula. I should have done something to my formula. Can anyone remember it? What? Yes, I need to put the dollar signs in. Well done, Matt. It is F4. So I need to press F4 on my keyboard on either of these. Click OK, and then drag that down. And you can see that it's filled that up. So you can watch this back if that's been quite quick. Well done. That is called an absolute cell reference. So I've gone over an if statement, a VLOOKUP. I'm just going back to newsletters now. So you can make your newsletter, I'm going to zoom right out so you can see what I'm doing, but you can make your newsletter in any piece of software you want, but please don't use PowerPoint because it's not desktop publishing software. But be careful with what it asks, because there's a difference. If it is a tri-fold leaflet, that means it's folded in three. I'm going to make my font really huge so you can see that. So if it says tri-fold, it usually means fold in three, or bifold, fold in two. Sometimes they might say there's a front and back to the leaflet, in which case that means it is landscape and folded in two. So you're basically making a booklet that's folded in half. Okay, if I just get an example of a piece of paper just so I can show you. Okay, so this is trifold, so it folds out in three. Okay, so you need to make sure that your text doesn't go across these two columns. Alright, you need to make sure it's separated onto 3 pages, and you'll need to make it landscape. And then an example of if they're saying it's folded in half, that means usually that you need to design the inside, and if you put any text on there, make sure you don't put the text in the middle of it, because you get marked down for going over the line. So, some tips. You can insert text boxes. So if I go to insert a text box, alright, so you should see that's on the top menu. Insert text box. You can draw your text box. Now, what you can do, let's just imagine, let's get rid of this. Let's imagine that I've got to do a newsletter. Newsletters are generally in columns, and you usually get marks for that, if you remember the mock that we did. So I'm going to draw some columns using text boxes, and you can copy and paste that. Okay, I might make that slightly bigger so I can put a picture there. So text boxes, use all your space. Don't have big gaps, because if you've got big gaps in your text, it's not going to work very well. So try and section up your pages into specific sections. Now, I'm just going to show you some examples of bad design, because I've seen this no end of times. Red background, and then some orange text. Welcome to Mr. Chambers' revision newsletter. Now that is not very clear, and you will lose marks for that. You need to be consistent with the colour scheme, but make sure it's contrasting. So if you really wanted to keep in with the colour scheme, you can just have a white background, okay, with some nice dark text, so if it happened to be red, but then put in your format, so remember at the top in formatting, you can actually do an outline, the shape outline. You can choose colour, and you can even choose the weight of it to make it relevant. Alright, so this is if the title went across. Yes, you would be marked down if your title went across your fold. Okay, so try. Well, on a newsletter like this, you wouldn't really fold it. There's a difference between a newsletter and a brochure. Sorry if I was a bit confusing with that. Newsletters tend to be one page, but brochures, in case they get you to make a brochure, that's when you fold it. So this would be fine, because this is a newsletter. I should have been a bit clearer of that. Apologies. So thanks for mentioning that. So, right, this is my newsletter for the revision guide. Right, so I'm going to make this bold, I'm going to make it underlined, I'm going to make it nice and big. Now, that's exactly what you want to avoid. If your text is cut off in any way, you'll be marked down. You need to make sure that you can see the whole thing. So that's what I would be looking for in a title. Nice, big, bold, and you could even put pictures either side. Make sure then, so if I want to be consistent, I would make sure I've used the same font. I might this time just make it underlined, so my subheadings are the same and underlined. Then here, for my text, it would be slightly smaller. Welcome to my revision guide. But if you look up here, so I'll go a bit closer. Alright, so you can see they're all the same font, but I've just made my top one bold and underlined. I've made the second one underlined and slightly smaller, and then again I've made my main text smaller. Alright, and that's what you should be doing. Make sure, so if I just get some pictures in here, let's get some M&M guys, set pictures. So make sure your pictures don't end up behind. Yeah, being really difficult. What you can do is go on, wrap text, and put in front of text. Make sure that you don't move it off the page. If you print it out and your pictures are cut off, try and make them smaller, alright? And make sure they fit on there, alright? Use the space available. So this would be an example of a bad pictures design. So what I'm going to do, so if I put my picture on here but it was like this, my picture's cut off, that's a bad idea. What I need to do, let's just cut that. Wrap the text in front of text and make it, what I can do is I can say to the text when it goes to wrap, alright, this is important, I can go to type. So this means now that if I wanted to get the text to wrap around it, so let's send this in line with the text as well. Let's cut that, paste it there. My picture now, if I go to format, sorry about this if you get motion sickness, if I go to format and wrap text, I can make sure it's wrapped. Alright? Make sure when you print off your newsletter you do not have tons of blank space. Alright? So even if you leave that big gap at the bottom, it's not good. Try and fill the space. If you need to make your text a little bit bigger with the text they've given you, that's fine. Read the exam paper, because sometimes they will say to you, alright, they might say, include some text that persuades people to take this sport up. Alright, so you could use this space to put some persuasive text in here. So you could have a new subheading that says, why not join today, and then include the text. Look out for things like that in your exam. If you haven't done so already, get a highlighter of somebody so you can highlight the bullet points. Yes, you do need to put your name in the header and footer on everything you print, because you are not allowed out of your seat in the exam. The technicians will go and get your work. So if you insert header and footer, okay. So if I go to header, I can put the name there. All right. Now, if your work doesn't come to you, make sure. Then it might be that the way you've printed it. So let's just Mr. Chambers. Difficult to see that. So when they print it off, it might not be there. When it comes to newsletters, if you have to, insert another text box and just draw it in there and put your name and candidate number in the top corner if you have to. Because newsletters, it's quite hard to put your name in the header and footer. Alright. One last thing, when they give you items in a list, you get marks for bullet points. so use them. Alright, it might ask for a numbered list, in which case you use the numbers. It might ask for bullets, so make sure you use anything you can. Alright, one last thing before we finish. I know I've went over what I originally said, but I hope it's been useful. When you're in your spreadsheet, if you struggle with the if formula, don't panic, okay? To make sure that the rest of your work is correct, put in the manual answer. So if you get to the if formula and you don't know how to do it, alright, you can type in the manual answer and then use that so that the rest of your work is correct. I hope that makes sense. And just to finish, make sure that your file name is not saved as something random. If you're asked to make a flyer, and that's going to be what you're attaching in your email, save it as flyer for whatever they've asked you, okay? So, your file name, make sure it is relevant to the task. So if you have to, for example, make a flyer for a barbecue that is coming up, you'd make sure when you save it, file save as, summer barbecue flyer. Alright? Give it a relevant name. Look at the keywords in the exam paper. File save as, summer barbecue flyer. Because then when you attach it in your email task, the examiner can see that print screen with the correct file name on the list. So I'm going to finish there. I hope that's been useful, guys. I know I've slightly went over, and some of you are probably wanting to go off for your dinner now and just chill before Monday. But do any of you have any questions or anything that you'd like me to go over with you guys? Just tweet them now, and I will go over anything or ask me anything. It's edXL. If you're wanting to try some past papers, what I will do, alright, is on Show My Homework, I will upload some more past papers for you. I think I already put some up there, but what I'll do is I'll put up some past papers, the ones that we've been working on in the lesson, so you can go over them again. So I'll do that as soon as I get off this webcam. Any other questions, just feel free to tweet them. And I know if that's what I was saying earlier. If you're not following, you can't comment, but you should still be able to tweet me on Twitter. That's what I was trying to say. I've put that on as a security setting in case other people join in here. So I only want people who are in here who should be. So if you have any questions, the exam is 2 hours long. But we have been doing 2-hour mock papers, so So I'm just going to finish there. So what I will do is I'll try and save this video. Let's see. Charlie, the exam is 2 hours. So what I will do is I will finish there, and I should be able to save this and people can watch it later on. Okay, so have a good evening, everybody, and good luck this week.